Good morning. Glad to be with you all this morning. Thank you for being here. You know, we have a pretty extraordinary part of our tradition in the Hebrew Bible in our Old Testament. A significant portion of the Hebrew Bible of our Old Testament is made up of these books that are critiques of ancient Israel, of society, of government, and especially of religious practices. And it's surprising, that these critiques, these ways that the Israelites were falling short, according to these critiques, they became a major part of the Bible. There wasn't any sanitizing of the criticism here, no avoidance of the parts of the story that were difficult, of how they were falling short, the parts that weren't flattering. The prophet Amos that we read from today, he calls out Israel for practicing the ceremonies of religion without living out their values. He writes about the suffering of the poor and the outcast, and he reminds is a nice way to say it. It's pretty scathing. He tells the religious people that they are in the same boat as the people who are the least well off among them. Theirs is a shared humanity. He is writing at a time when the economic gap between the well-off and those who are not is growing, and he reminds his listeners that they are all in this together. A few chapters before what we read today, Amos writes that God doesn't desire more religious practices, but instead God desires that justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. Beautiful words, you know them. They were written 2,700 years ago. The people's failure to follow through on this leads us to our passage today, when Amos predicts the coming exile of the people, their defeat by the Babylonians, their exile. What does it mean to be human? How do you and I want to live? How do we want to act towards other people? These are questions that are at the heart of our tradition. And they are at the heart of nearly every religious tradition, too. I'm loosely quoting author Krista Tippett here. How do we want to live? How do we want to treat other people? The parable of the Good Samaritan we read today, it has entered popular culture. It's even entered our legal system. It's the name for laws that protect you from civil liability in certain instances if you try to help someone, say you administer CPR to someone you don't know who's collapsed. We have such a law here in Texas, a Good Samaritan law. Although, maybe I should add that the sermon is not legal advice in any particular situation. Lawyers take it pretty hard in today's gospel lesson. But I want to say that this story is about more than just stopping to help somebody. It isn't just about a one-off instance of generosity. This story is about a way of being. It's about what we do with religious and ethnic difference. This story is about how we want to live. This story is about how we want to treat each other. It's about what it means for us to be human. Let me say that this is hard for me, because I like and benefit from those distinctions that make me better than others. Even if it's just a little hit of superiority, I like that. I like those differences that help me preserve my status. It always comes at the expense of someone else, doesn't it? I like it. Maybe this is true for you too. Those things that taught all of us how to fit into our groups. All those groups we belong to, a profession, a school, a place where you grew up. You know, all those things that taught you what's valued, how to act, what kind of people to associate with. The very things that I thought taught me how to connect with people in those places. They've also limited my horizons. Learning how to go beyond them has been a hard step and important, for me, an ongoing, everyday step. The very things I thought were connective, and they were for a time and for a season, I have to unlearn some of them now. Take the best parts with me and go beyond them. I bet that this is your path too. I am telling you something that you already know. You know, our creation stories, our creation myths, they tell us that we all come from the same place. That was the experience of the holy that inspired those stories. That the Holy One joins us together across time and across space and across a difference. And it is a paradox of our faith, isn't it? The more fidelity we show to following the path of Jesus for you and for me here in the tradition of the church, the deeper we commit to that tradition, the more we will see and experience connection to others beyond just our tradition. This paradox, it drives our outreach, it drives our interfaith efforts. The more we seek to follow the Holy One we see in Jesus, the less that Holy One can be contained just here. Here's how author Richard Rohr puts it, his words now. Jesus is moving his disciples beyond any kind of narrow worldview. Not surprisingly, we often find outsiders understanding him and responding to him more than the insiders. Take the Roman centurion who called him the Son of God. Or take the Syrophoenician woman, the centurion's servant, the Gerasene demoniac, the Good Samaritan, the foreign leper, Zacchaeus, and the other non-Jews who responded so strongly to Jesus. What does he usually tell them? You have great faith. Or nowhere in Israel have I found faith like this. You think he'd call them to Jerusalem to join his group or to accept John's baptism, but no, even to public sinners, he says, go in peace. Your faith has made you whole. My words again now. This isn't a path that makes us right. If rightness is our goal, we're going to go off track here. But instead, Jesus calls us deeper and deeper into our humanity. That's how one bishop puts it. I'm paraphrasing him. The truth that we find there, it's not going to take away all of our anxiety. It's not going to take away our suffering. The truth we find there, it's not a kind of certainty about our rightness. But instead, what we find there is the courage to live by the faith of Jesus. We find the integrity to stick with that path, even in uncertainty and anxiety. Rohr's words again, lightly edited by me. This is Jesus' simple message. Holiness is no longer to be found through separation from or exclusion of the supposedly contaminating element. But in fact, it's in the radical inclusion, read forgiveness, of that very element. So what Jesus has to lead us on is a new path. He will give the people knowledge of salvation through the forgiveness of their sins. That's how he puts it in Luke. The inclusion of the enemy in Matthew, even departure from what we think is ourself in Mark. Rohr continues. My lifetime of studying Jesus would lead me to summarize all of his teachings inside two prime ideas: forgiveness and inclusion. And don't believe me, just go through the Gospels story by story. It is self-evident. Forgiveness and inclusion are Jesus' great themes. They are the practical name of love. Without forgiveness and inclusion, love is largely a sentimental valentine. And you know, this is good news for us. For you and me, it's good news for us, too. We're not just insiders in this. Because once we get into the line-drawing business, once we're deciding that some people are in and others are out, that some people are forgivable and others aren't, once we're in the insiders and outsiders business, there will come a time when we are on the outside. Once we're in the line-drawing business, there will be a time when we're on the outside of the line. So this is good news for all of us, for all of us. It's a call deeper and deeper into our humanity. That humanity that we share with everyone, When we do this, we won't just find others. We will find ourselves. And we will find God. Amen.